What's going on, guys? Briar Rabbit here. Today we have a ton to talk about. As you know, we are now living in a world where Destiny 2 has been released. I gotta say, so far, I'm absolutely loving it. I'll talk more about individual things like story and strikes and PvP later, once we have time for the dust to settle and we've had a little more time to experience systems like leveling up and infusion and all of that fun stuff. But right now, I'd like to talk about this image that Bungie released yesterday. So this is basically a guide to what events will be happening over the next few weeks. You can see this is launch week. We have a Nightfall on the Arms Dealer strike. We have the Flashpoint in the European Dead Zone. And of course, Wednesday was launch day. In week 2, we've got the Nightfall on the Inverted Spire strike. And the Nightfall Guided Games beta begins, which is very interesting. Now you'll be able to invite people through guided games into your Nightfall strike, which should be a lot of fun. The Flashpoint will be on Nessus, and the Leviathan raid launches. Also on Friday, Trials of the Nine begins, and it is going to be the countdown game mode on the map Eternity, and we'll get our first peek at Xur returning with a selection of exotics. So this is pretty interesting because on Friday, Trials of the Nine starts, and it's going to be on countdown. But if you look at week 3, Trials of the Nine will be survival on the Altar of Flame. So it looks like the Trials of the Nine event will be switching not only between maps every week, but also between game modes. So far, we see 3 weeks of Trials, and we see 2 weeks of survival and 1 week of countdown. So that should mix up Trials a little bit week to week. Now, there's also another very interesting thing if you look all the way to week 4. It's the faction rally. What is a faction rally? A lot of people, so when I put together the Twitter questions for the Destiny Community Podcast, I'll bet I read 20 or 30 questions just on what happened to the old factions. What happened to New Monarchy, Future War Cult, Dead Orbit? We've seen that they're in the game somehow. We've seen their emblems on weapons and armor in trailers and in promotional material for Destiny 2. But when the game dropped, they were notably absent. And a lot of people were curious. So when this image came out, when Bungie released this roadmap for the next few weeks, it was really exciting for a lot of people because right there it says Faction Rally begins. And you see the old emblems. You see the old faction emblems sitting right there. So the next question is, what is a faction rally? Well, that's a good question. Now, I find that the word rally is really interesting, and I'm going to make a guess. I talked about it a little bit on Destiny Community Podcast last night. I've had more time to think about this. The word rally reminds me of rallying behind the troops or a pep rally, rallying together to try and promote, your cause. And that, I think, is a really interesting choice of words. Instead of using the word like faction war, where we're warring between factions, we're rallying behind our faction. And I find that to be really interesting. So what does that mean? What could this be? Well, again, this is just a guess. This is just, wild out there guess. My guess is that when you log in after the reset in week 4, you're going to be asked to pledge your allegiance to one of these 3 factions. And whichever allegiance you choose, whichever faction you choose, you will now be on that team for a week. Let's say you choose Future War Cult. Now, every time you run a strike, run a Nightfall, run a raid, compete in Trials of Osiris, compete in the Crucible, you earn points that get added to your faction's kind of grand total. And everybody who has pledged allegiance to that faction is adding to that total. And at the end of the week, everybody probably gets a reward for participating, but my guess is the faction that has the most points is going to get something special, and that could be really cool. So it'll be interesting if that is how it works. And again, this is just a guess. This is just, fly-by-night kind of guess. It could be that your choice of which faction to pledge allegiance to is actually really important because you're going to be getting rewards based on the performance of that faction. And that could finally mean that your faction allegiance actually means something in Destiny 2. Because for me, in Destiny 1, I know a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people really felt like, their faction was part of who they were as a Destiny player. For me, I never cared. They never had any personality in-game, very little, if any. If you read the Grimoire, yeah, you could learn a little bit about the factions, but I didn't really care that much. They just didn't matter. I chose my faction based on who had the best armor, who had the best weapons. That was it. Normally, I ran with 3 characters, one alleged to each faction, so I never really missed out on anything. I really had no reason to care about the factions. But if the community is the faction, if on Tuesday of week 4 we are asked to rally behind our faction of choice, all of a sudden we've got players who are the faction. Our group is the faction. Whoever we support, we are going to go out and be grinding strikes, grinding Crucible matches, running the raids, and trying to earn toward the total of our faction so that we can win the rally at the end. That would be really cool. It's a really interesting idea. Again, this is a complete wild guess, though. This could be something else. It could be a new form of sparrow racing. Who knows? It is fun to think about, though. And until week 4, I suspect, well, maybe week 3 they'll tell us about it. I suspect they're going to be pretty tight-lipped on this until it actually comes out, because this is a really fun thing to speculate about. Of course, there is more to this image as well. On week 4, we're going to get the Leviathan Raid guided games. I think this is going to be a really well-received feature for this game. If everything works as it's supposed to, guided games is really going to help people who are never able to get into raids in Destiny 1, get into raids in Destiny 2. Hopefully, what it does in both the Nightfall and in the raids is it gets people into the raids and into the community and making friends. That's what I'm really hoping for that. So I'm really excited about guided games. I actually think it could be a real boon to the community. I hope it works flawlessly. We also did get to hear a little bit about Iron Banner. It will be coming in October, as well as the Prestige mode for the raid. Still don't know a lot about the Prestige mode for the raid. I'm guessing details will be coming later. Bungie is spectacularly quiet about this raid, the Leviathan raid. We really don't know anything about it. It's all about speculation right now. My suspicion is on the 13th, when the raid opens up, that is going to be our first look at the raid, which is actually super exciting. So speaking of the raid, I've been leveling up quite well, actually. I've been having some pretty good luck leveling up. I'm around 260, 265 right now on my main, my Titan right now. I'm also really thinking hard about getting a Warlock going, hopefully raid ready for next Wednesday. My suspicion is that 270, 280 is going to be raid ready, and you'll probably earn light level quick once you start doing the raid. And I'd like to have 2 characters raid ready. 280 seems to be a bit of a soft cap right now, meaning that before the raid hits, it's going to be very difficult to get over 280 in power level. That's separate from your character level. Your character level maxes out at 20, but your power level can get up to 300 before the raid, and then for the hard mode, apparently 350. My guess is that it's going to be very difficult, that Bungie has put measures in that limit us to about 280, because it seems like it's very difficult to go over 280. So once you hit, you know, the high 270s, 280, it might be time to seriously think about creating a new character and getting that character raid ready, and maybe even a 3rd character, because to be honest with you, the grind isn't that hard, and it's really fun this time around. You get to do a ton of different activities. The variety to the grind is much greater than it's been in raids past or launches past. In the Taken King or in Rise of Iron, I really felt like the way to level up fastest was just to run strikes over and over and over and over again. And that's not the case this time. It seems like there's a lot of different activities you can do to level up quickly, and the variety makes it more interesting and more fun to be in that grind mode. Strikes are definitely something you could be doing. I don't suspect they're the fastest way to level up, but once you hit like the 265 area, my guess is that they're going to be a little more important. Just trying to get engrams once you're over 265, I think is going to be really important. So we'll have to wait and see. I am really looking forward to the raid, though. Of course, the Destiny Community Podcast will be attempting the world's first raid. My suspicion is, here's the deal. We want to go in there blind. Of course, we're going to try for worlds first. It's not going to, be the end-all be-all if we do it or don't do it. But of course, we're going to be trying for it. But going into a raid blind is one of my favorite experiences in Destiny. In Destiny 2, I'm just really looking forward to having the same experience. And it looks like I'll have 2 characters raid ready, possibly 3 if I really put the nose to the grindstone. So that's pretty exciting. It's not nearly as difficult to level up as I had anticipated. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button if you liked the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.